Benny, I think we're in an interesting time in school leadership around the country because we're finding that resources can be scarce and/or the ways in which we try to best manage the funding that we have. A lot of districts, I find, are looking for alternative means to support the needs of the students and the teachers in their buildings. I'm curious from your perspective, in Kentucky, have you had conversations around the proper timing and the way to engage corporate America or corporations or entities in the private sector within Kentucky to help interface with public schools? And if so, how do you view that?
Right, yeah. The ongoing issues, as you say, and I think you have different levels. We're fortunate to have a UPS hub in Louisville, Kentucky, and I know there's been a lot of cooperation through larger districts, as in Jefferson County. I'm in a much smaller district and in very rural Kentucky, so that presents its own challenges when you do that. Most any district will have some number of, whether it's a manufacturer, some entity within the district that you can work through. The issue of that becomes sustainability, and then how do you build that into the long haul? So while Kingsford Charcoal Manufacturing, for instance, is in our district, they're a wonderful partner and they're wonderful for a specific project, but to build that into any type of long-term sustainability for our district presents more of a challenge. So hence, we tend to have to go outside. We have a grant writer, many districts now have a grant writer, and we're constantly looking for those partnerships or even relationships that we can do that'll be more long-term in nature.
Let's talk a little bit about technology and the way in which we go from resources to then providing into the classroom. I think it's interesting. I think we're maturing as an industry. I'd be curious to see if you agree with me in this way, that when we first see technology sort of hit a district, it's just K-12.
Right.
But I'm starting to see more thoughtful discussions, not only from technology providers, but also from districts, and saying K-8's a little bit different than 8 to 12.
Yeah.
How do you separate that out, and what kinds of conversations? Because I know you spent years as a technology director, so I'd imagine this is sort of personal to you in the way in which you can also personalize the experience for both students and teachers at K to 8 versus 8 to 12.
Yeah, one of the conversations we're having right now, because we, like most districts, are trying to work through personalized learning. I've been fortunate to be a part for the past year or so of the AASA personalized learning cohort, and so making connections of my colleagues from across the nation of what we're doing. And you are correct. One of the challenges specifically is lower primary. So when we're looking at that K2, K3, and we're having our own struggles and debates in that right now, we have some major projects going on in grades 4 to 12. And so we're having that conversation, how does it work K3? But we're beginning to see movement. There are some models out there. We had some of our school personnel visit Wisconsin just 2 weeks ago and see some of that in action, and they come back with some ideas. So I think you're going to see more movement in the I'll call it K3 sector in that arena, and it's more than just a child having a good time with an iPad swiping back and forth. It's going to be actual content delivery, actual interaction, and I think our students can handle that. I think they're prepared for it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that part up, or that point, because I'm happy to see that there is a shift from students being consumers to creators.
Absolutely.
And that really then speaks to that younger generation.
Yeah.
Do you find that you need to provide more supports for your own staff so that you can be looking at it through that lens? Because a lot of times technology, we think it's just it's sort of icing on the cake.
Yeah.
And it's, no, wait a minute. Yeah. There are technologies not only that we can apply to different subjects that we originally thought maybe were only isolated to one, but there's so many different impacts that they can have.
Yeah. I think back to my time in the classroom and the colleagues that were teaching at that time that I still have communication with. Today's emphasis on personalized learning, as I look back, I think we had that concept all along, and we had that desire and we had that dream, and so many of our national authorities on education kept speaking of differentiation. And it's hard to argue differentiation, but when you're in a classroom from 8 to 3 and maybe a 50-minute or hour-long period, how do you manage that? That has been the challenge all the way along. Finally, and I think just probably in the last 3 to 4 years, technology has caught up with that. So as when I taught middle grade science and social studies, wanting to do this and trying to do it, but not having any resources to help manage it, now we have that. The technology is finally there to do it. So when we see the one-to-one projects and whatnot taking place now, it's not just to say that you have a computer and I have a computer. No, it is the delivery of the instruction, the mode of the instruction, and what you're able to do as a learner now is capable of being managed in a very efficient manner because of the technology we have available.
Let's talk a little bit about not assessment's a big word, and that's for a much larger discussion. But in the way in which we communicate the achievement and the results of students to the greater community, that includes parents and all sorts of stakeholders. How do you look at that in the ways in which we are adding more and more in the way in which we're personalizing learning and documenting that experience? How does your district look at not only documenting it, but then communicating that out?
Yeah. Let me talk first about the documenting, because I think the conversation we've been having just recently it goes back to lesson plans. The old thing of, teacher lesson plans are due on Friday or due Monday morning or whatever it might be. So we're having a conversation now. If we're truly personalized learning, we've got our content digitized and students are moving at their own pace, and it is open for the school world, and I might even say it should be open for parents as well. From an administrator point of view, the old day of turning in a lesson plan in a little 3-inch block or whatever should be gone, because now you don't just have the lesson plan, you have the lesson. If you're the principal, if you're the curriculum director, you should be able to go in at any time and see the lesson and see the progression. Now talk about the parents. The parents, the majority of the tools that I'm aware of have what they call a parent view. So at any given time, a parent can drop in and see exactly what their child is working on, exactly what they're doing, seeing their grades. My phone may buzz at any moment in my pocket with my daughter's grades today in her classes, so I know exactly where she is and what she's doing. That just continues to advance. And for the larger community, I think when we begin to accelerate student work and our community can see what's taking place, I really think it begins not to de-emphasize, but our state results, and where we're putting one number, or some states that put a letter out there that it might be, that our communities do not get so fixated on that, but they get fixated on what the students are doing, not only in the classroom, but in their community.
Let's look at your personal story. What have you learned along the way in being a superintendent? I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what it means to be a superintendent, what it takes to be a superintendent in an ever-growing and changing industry. What have you personally learned?
I think I've learned that it's important to listen, to always listen. And the open door policy kind of gets overused and kind of in some cases a misnomer, but I've tried to develop an environment, if you will, whether it's in the parking lot at the grocery store or in the stands at the ball game, or whether it's walking into my office, that I'm there to have a conversation with anybody. My first few months on the job, I had several people ask me, "Oh, I bet you're getting a lot of phone calls. I bet you're getting," and I said, "No, not really." And I said, "No, they just come see me." And it was almost like when the word got out, "Yeah, this guy will talk to you," and whatnot. They were just about lined up.
So now there's a little bit of a, for those that don't know you personally, that you're a part of a band, correct?
Yes.
So I would imagine that you then can fill the seats pretty well if you've got an open door policy.
And I think that helps. We do. We have. There's 8 of us. It's administrators, teachers, and students.
And the name of the band
is the Hornets Nest Pickers. The Hornets being our mascot for Metcalfe County. But I think when you put yourself in that environment and people see you out in that, number one, they can have a good time. They can come enjoy something and be a part of it and whatnot. That makes people a lot more open to approaching you as an individual, and just creates a more relaxed atmosphere. And I think that's not what we did but that's certainly been a nice byproduct. Yeah.